Hello, this is Sam Gerrans from Truth in the News. Today is Tuesday, the 5th of April, 2022. And what I'm going to look at today is an article from the Guardian, the Independent? It's the Guardian. And we're just going to have a brief look at it. I think we're all fairly used to the genre. I'm going to get through this one without the help of the extras that I've been normally using. There's quite a lot of technical stuff that's going on, which I won't bore you with the details. We'll just jump in the best we can. And first, we'll have a look at the article. They were all shot. Russia accused of war crimes as Bucha reveals horrors of invasion or horror of invasion. Now, what we look at on this channel is how media, how information is used to elicit usually an emotional response. I call this emotional carpet bombing. The Sergei Lavrov is currently calling it informational terrorism, and I think that's a very apposite term. We're going to not read the whole of this article, but we're going to have a quick look at it. And then what I'm going to do is show you some clips from my own personal Telegram feed, two of which are in Russian, but I'll just give you the gist of what's going on. And then we'll look at some other information. And this will just give you this in a bit of a broader context. So I hope you can see this all right. Here goes. They were all shot. Ukrainian forces liberating the town near Kiev find streets littered with corpses of civilians and burnt-out Russian tanks. Now, actually, just before we get into it, the fact is that the Russians, they were not kicked out of this place. What they did was, with 40,000 troops, was manage to hold down a city of over 3 million people plus 100,000 troops, pin them down in that city while the rest of the army got on with another job elsewhere in the country. Now that job in Mariupol is done. They're now going to move over to the Donbass region and finish off the Ukrainians there. So now they don't need to be in Kiev anymore because gaining Kiev was never the objective. But let's just move on. The retreat of Russian forces. You see how this is salty? I must just say, how is the West going to get its head round this when it finds out that Russia not only has won this war but was actually always winning it? Now, it's not to say it's not a difficult war. It's not to say that the Ukrainians can't fight. They can fight, but they are being beaten, and they have been beaten practically. But what this media does, what this informational terrorism does, is keep the war going much longer than it need to. Anyway, just to continue. The retreat of Russian forces around Kiev has left horrifying evidence of atrocities against civilians littered across the region's suburbs and towns, turned into hellish war zones by Vladimir Putin's invasion. I think we can just skip all of this pablum and I'll just get to the point, okay? Because I'm sure you've heard it all. Russians are evil, atrocities, murders and killings and all the rest of it. You've been shown some pictures and you've been told a story. But if you're a grown-up, what you want to know is this true? And the fact is, I think the preponderance of evidence is that it's highly unlikely to be true. And I'm just going to give you a couple of things first. So let's see if I can do this. Give me a second. I'm going to show you this chap here. I don't know who he is other than a propagandist. He's speaking Russian rather than Ukrainian. He's surrounded by Western journalists, and he's basically talking into his camera or his phone or whatever it is as this bevy of Western journalists, cameras poised at the ready to take photographs of the evidence that the Ukrainians have, and then to run off back to their own computers and send this stuff immediately into the media machine.
Я нахожусь сейчас в детском лагере в Буче. Здесь должны были бы отдыхать и резвиться дети. Вместо этого в этом лагере 3 недели жили русская солдатня.
Okay, so I just 3 weeks Russian soldiers, he uses a rather disparaging term for soldiers, lived here for 3 weeks in this children's camp. That's the point he's trying to make.
Мы выгнали их из Бучи. В подвале этого детского лагеря было найдено 5 замученных мужчин в гражданском.
Okay, so they say that they found 5 tortured, izmuchenych, kind of like, terrorized and tortured men, which they've managed to find, and now they're bringing out these corpses in order to place them before the international press.
Их руки были связаны. Их убили выстрелами, кого в голову, кого в грудь.
Okay,
Сейчас мы
so they were killed. Some of them were shot in the head, and some of them were shot in the chest. You know, as they could do it.
собрали здесь журналистов со всего мира, от Японии до Америки, для того, чтобы
Okay, so they've summoned the media from the whole world, from Japan to the United States, so that they can show them this atrocity.
показать на весь мир правду о преступлениях русских солдат, которых
So they can show the whole world the truth of the crimes committed by the Russian soldiers.
которые убили наших украинцев. Вы мразь.
So, who killed our Ukrainians, and now they're bringing another corpse on, and I'll play this last bit to you in a minute again because it's important.
Будете за это отвечать. За то, что абсолютно невинные люди погибли здесь. Они должны были бы жить и жить.
He said absolutely innocent people perished here who should have just lived long, happy lives, something like that. Now, the corpse that they've brought back on, I'm just going to wind it back a little bit. And if you notice him, he has this white bandage kind of like around his arm. Now he stops very slightly, just for a second. He catches himself because his version is that this is a Ukrainian man who was mercilessly murdered by the evil Russians who I'm going to link to a much longer show later on. In fact, a few things so you can see why it's highly unlikely that the Russians would have done this. But that white bandage, it means that he was either Russian or Russian allied somehow with a Russian. The actual fact is that it's far more likely that he was murdered by the Ukrainians. And that's not just me saying that. If you look up online what the white bandage means in the context of this war. Anyway, I'll just back it up a little bit and let you just watch his reaction as he sees this. Now, what they're doing is they're putting these into body bags so that these journalists, you can't really use the word journalists, these propagandist prostitutes can then take the photographs which are required by the narrative that you're being given in the West, and you'll be told how evil the Russians are.
Убили наших украинцев. Вы, мрази, будете за это отвечать. За то, что абсолютно невинные люди погибли здесь. Они должны были бы жить и радоваться жизни.
You may have noticed he just stopped for a second because he knows what that bandage means, even if the morons with their Nikons and Sonys don't. Right, let's move on to another one. There's another one I wanted to show you. This is a Ukrainian MP, Ilya Kiva. This is very short, and I'll just give you a running translation as he says that this tragedy in Bucha was prepared by the Ukrainian sort of internal police and planned by the British MI6. Now, he's a Ukrainian MP saying this.
Люди на Руси действительно тупели. Я читаю комментарии, у меня просто слов нет. Еще раз вам говорю.
He said, I can't believe how stupid people have become. I'm reading the comments and I'm lost for words.
Официальная информация. Вся история в Буче, она была заранее спланирована и подготовлена контрразведкой Украины.
This was planned ahead of time by the sort of anti-kontrrazvedka, the sort of security services of Ukraine.
Она была разведкой Ми-6. Они же
and MI6.
Приехали рано утром, оцепили район, раскидали трупы, а потом
They came early in the morning, threw around a load of dead bodies.
Гнали туда журналистов. Для этого именно даже вернулся этот шут Зеленский.
And then they called a load of journalists, and it was precisely for this that joker Zelensky came back.
Поднять интерес международной прессы к случившейся
to get the Western media interested.
Якобы трагедии, но это все чистый фейк. Почему в таких ситуациях?
Yeah, so you could get everybody interested in this as it's so-called tragedy when it's just a complete fake. And I'm telling you now that this will be exposed as a fake in the next 48 hours to a week, something like that.
не было ни в Сумской области, ни в Черниговской области. Вы что, не понимаете, что все это заранее срежиссированная постановка, которая должна...
He said it didn't happen in this region, didn't happen in that region. Why can't you understand that this is just basically, this is a play. This is just a fake. So that's him. Right, now I'm going to move to somebody in English that, and we're going to look, give me a second, because this is all new here. I'm going to pull up Scott Ritter.
Well, thank you. No, I wasn't a cop or anything like that, but for 7 years I ran forensic investigations in Iraq, where we wrote the book on forensic reconstruction of events, and the Ukrainians and their supporters in the West are off book right now. This is purely a propaganda exercise. It's